Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With us today is Daniel McAdams, our co-host. Daniel, good to see you.
Good morning, Dr. Paul. How are you this morning?
Doing fine.
Yeah.
Ready to go.
Ready to go.
Come up with some brilliant solutions. We can dream. Well, the solutions are out there, and we feel good that we can offer something about the solution. The problem is we're still not quite in the majority, and we haven't been well received by the mainstream media or the social media. Yeah. So, but that's not unusual. There will always be a challenge, but when we see an opening, we go for it, because I think there has been some openings and some shifting of attitudes, especially over COVID. But we have a job cut out for us for the foreign policy. But before we get into that, I want to let our viewers know about some changes we're having, and you're the expert on this thing. So tell our viewers what we have planned.
Well, Dr. Paul and viewers, this has been a long time coming. We've talked a lot about censorship. We've talked a lot about the difficulties of having this show. Believe it or not, Dr. Paul, since 2015, we've done a couple thousand episodes of the Ron Paul Liberty Report. But over the last couple of years, we have struggled a lot with censorship, with the idea that you could be kicked off at any point. And so that's why a little while ago, the folks from Rumble contacted us, and they said, hey, why don't you bring your live show to Rumble? We're not going to censor you. We're not going to intimidate you. We're not going to give you a hard time. Well, we thought long and hard about this, because we've got our great coffee club of live chatters on YouTube. But then Rumble said, we can do that too. No problem. We can do live chat. We can do all the stuff. Just come on Rumble Live in the morning, and you can even put it up later in the day on YouTube and elsewhere. So here's the big announcement. As of August 2nd, we will be live streaming the Ron Paul Liberty Report, same time, not same place. We'll be live streaming on Rumble, because Rumble is dedicated to free speech. We're grateful to the people from Rumble for recognizing the effort that we put into the show and for offering us a platform to go live. And in fact, let's put up a little picture in case you don't see us on Rumble, that first JPEG. Here is the Ron Paul Liberty Report on Rumble. We've already got a good subscriber base, but we need all of you to go over there as well. If you're not subscribed, if you're not on Rumble, please go over there and subscribe. Please watch the show on Rumble starting the 2nd. We'll make the announcement again. But Dr. Paul, I, for one, it's been kind of a nightmare having to worry about being shut down constantly. And the good people at Rumble, they believe in free speech. And I think we've had some of our backers say, you should just go there. Forget about it. Stop fooling around. And they're right. So as much as I hate change, I'm happy that we're doing it.
But they have been patient in negotiations, because we procrastinated a little bit here and there. But finally got to a point where we're comfortable with it. And I think we're not going to lose anything. We're going to add a whole lot of advantage for this. And we're going to sleep a little bit better at night, that they can't take us off the air. But I don't think anything's permanent and perfect forever, but we'll be on our toes. But I think this is going to be helpful to us. I'm looking forward to being with Rumble.
And the other benefit for Rumble is that they own locals, and so we're going to get a lot more active on the locals page, and we will have some parts of it for free, but we'll have some backstage pass stuff for people that want to subscribe to the local page. We will give you more information on that, but it'll give us an opportunity to expand the platform a little bit, to add some more things, to add some different things on the local side. So they just gave us a great opportunity, and we're really looking forward to it. So Coffee Clutch people, don't worry, we'll still be watching you live streaming starting on the 2nd on Rumble. And the good news, if you don't want to go to Rumble, I don't know why you wouldn't, but it'll be on YouTube 4 hours after. So there's a 4-hour exclusive on Rumble. And then in the afternoon, if you'd rather go to YouTube, you can see it there as well. So
very good.
And let's go to our show for today. We got a lot to talk about. We've got our favorite transport secretary. He cares about the little guy.
Yes, I keep thinking that there's been a lot of talk about our president and a lot of inference. they're talking about his age. That makes me really nervous. they call him an old guy, but my definition of young and old is different than some others. But anyway, they're trying to get a different image, and right now, all of a sudden, we're starting to hear more about Pete Buttigieg. You know, he ran for president. He did a good job. There's no doubt that he can handle himself a little bit better than the president. You know, be in front of a microphone. But I don't think his economics is any better. One thing about our president, he has these weird ideas on economics, but he doesn't get them across too well, and they're so outlandish. There's even liberals who say, "What are you talking about?" There's even Democrats now saying, you know, maybe debt could be a problem.
Yeah, wow.
But I'll tell you what, Pete Buttigieg is pretty smooth. He's intelligent. And yet, I think his economics are no better.
Yeah.
No better than most of the progressive liberals, Democrats, and many Republicans. And most of the economic professors in all our universities. That's where our problem is. But he's come out with a position. You know, we've heard Biden's position on on why we have inflation. And he says, well, it's all Putin's fault. Yeah. It's Putin's fault. We just have to deal with him. And there's been a lot of excuses, you know, for an explanation on why we have inflation. And when they talk about inflation, they're talking about CPI, prices of goods and services for the average person. When a free market economist talks about inflation, they talk about a condition whereby a central bank illegally, immorally, and unconstitutionally can arbitrarily print a lot of money and pass it out for special favors, and nobody's allowed to really explain it because they can't be blamed for anything, because that would break up the system they have here, because they can get away with it. They don't want to be blamed for it. So he's saying, you know, it doesn't matter. It's a good thing. This is Buttigieg, you know, on the inflation of prices. He says, because it will force the people to accept a transition to the green energy agenda. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I didn't know that it would be that powerful to do that. That is a joke. It's a sick joke, really. But I believe that there's still a lot of people that are concerned, you know, about pollution and heat and all these kind of things. But I still think they get their facts wrong. And all of a sudden, this idea, there's so many good points, and I think we have one here that we'll read about, that they're fibbing when they're saying that this transition to a green energy, you know, windmills and solar, and the facts do not conform that they could possibly do that. And matter of fact, there are some who think it, you know, even the effort's going to make it much worse, because first what they want to do is lock down and punish, which Biden has done in a year and a half, punish the people who said that hydrocarbons we can live with, and we're going to have trouble living without them is what the problem is going to be. So this is where they are right now, and he's in a leadership position. I cannot see much movement in that direction, but it's propaganda for them. That propaganda is for the green energy, and if you're not loyal to that, then you're not woke, and you're in trouble because you could lose your job over that.
Well, here's the big thing that he said yesterday, and let's put up this this clip, because this is something, you know, most normal people would genuinely feel sorry for a working family that sees. We put up that first clip, please. That sees gas prices at $5 a gallon. People that are on fixed incomes, people that are working. I know this the first clip, not the video. Yeah, just the first, because we want to introduce it first. Would at least have some feeling for the people. And even politicians, they would pretend that they have feelings for the average Joe. But here is the Transport Secretary sitting before Congress saying that the pain Americans feel at the pump is a benefit, is a good thing. If you're out there and you can't pay your bills, that's good. We're happy about it because it's going to force you to get 60 grand and buy an electric car, right? Everyone's going to go get 60,000 bucks and buy an electric car. I mean, if anything, this shows what's happened to the Democratic Party that once was the Democratic Party of my grandfather, a blue-collar worker, now has basically said, forget you. We don't care about you. You're feeling pain? That's great. And in fact, we have an audio-visual clip of him before Congress actually saying, we like the pain. You need to feel more pain. Let's listen to it real quick if we can.
We're all experiencing from the high price of gas, the more benefit there is for those who can access electric vehicles. Of course, the more pain we are all experiencing.
Yeah, we got a double dose of Pete. But the interesting thing about this, Dr. Paul, is our good friend Thomas Massie, very smart, as you know, MIT. He's the guy that built his house. He even dug the rocks out of the ground to build his house. He knows what he's talking about. He did a little bit of cross-examining, and he said, hey, Mr. Transport Secretary, you have any idea how much electricity it takes to charge those cars up? Of course, he didn't. He had no clue. Let's watch the exchange. This is 45 seconds of Thomas Massie talking to the Transport Secretary.
Household uses 17% of their electricity for air conditioning. And that would mean the average household uses 1,870 kilowatt hours per year for air conditioning. If that average household plugged in electric cars, do you know how much more electricity they would use in comparison to the air conditioning that air conditions their whole house?
No, but again, I would emphasize it will
Let
be
me help
less
you. Let me help you
overall.
with that first before we go on, because the numbers are important. It would take 4 times as much electricity to charge the average household's cars as the average household uses on air conditioning. Do you think that could be, so if we read...
So here it is. We all know what it's like, especially here in Texas when it gets hot. We have some rolling blackouts. We've had it in the past. You're having it across the country. Massie points out, if everyone does what you're demanding and they get these electric cars, 4 times as much electricity will be demanded than is used to power the air conditioning. What's going to happen to the grid?
You know, that's with what is known already, but there are some people who have included, you know, a little bit more calculation, and it's going to be a lot more expensive. And that is that, getting, if you have a battery, you spend a lot of money for this battery car, that's one big extra expense. But then they're going to, well, we'll just plug it in because electricity is just there. It's sort of like money.
It's free.
you stick the plug in, and it just comes through your house here. You stick it in your car, and you never have to go to the gasoline, and it won't cost all that much.
It's magic.
So it's magic for them. But what they don't really count is I listened to a lecture not too long ago talked about the battery itself. You know, charging is one thing, and electricity, you still use electricity and maybe more, end up using more electricity. But they say that the battery, is very costly to make. Yeah. You know, the batteries get more and more expensive. So I don't think they're going to calculate that. Well, I guess it could be in the cost of the car, but now there's shortages and all. Those prices are going to go up. The one thing that bothers me, which I just personally don't like, is, well, he sort of gloats on it. He says, you have to suffer. You have to sacrifice, to have benefit. And I generally believe that almost always you don't have to sacrifice. This whole idea that you have to, where it really bothers me, you have to sacrifice your liberties to be free. And I don't like that. So he was talking about this, that the only way you can do it is sacrifice. Well, you're going to sacrifice plenty if you go to electric cars, and at the same time, you're not going to get something for sacrificing. You're probably going to sacrifice here, and you're going to lose something over here too.
And also, you about the batteries, that's a good point. And also, there's a lot of environmental degradation that goes into mining the components to make those batteries.
That's right.
It's pretty bad news. But again, you pointed out, it's not magic that goes into your cars. They burn coal to make that electricity. They burn oil and natural gas and all that stuff. They burn nuclear or whatever to make that electricity. So the idea that it's free is just a fantasy. Here's another clip from the same article This is from one of Biden's energy advisors, Amos Hochstein. He says, we need to stop projects and limit oil usage to accelerate the transition. Well, we've seen a little bit of that transition already this year, Dr. Paul. That transition is from gas at under $3 to gas at $8 in some places. This is the transition they have in mind. And I just have a hard time, maybe I'm naive, I have a hard time understanding that the majority of the American people are going to sign on to the so-called green agenda that it's going to impoverish the country. All we have to do is look what Europe's going through right now, because they've been embracing it a lot harder than we have. It's going to be a cold winter for some of these people there.
You know, they say you have to accept the transition, a little discomfort, but you have to go through the transition to get over the green energy. But remember, not too long ago, they were, this price inflation, it's a big deal, but it's transitory. Yeah. So I don't think they're going to do any better with using transition to green energy as they were about this transitory price inflation that's going on, and in my estimation, just really getting going. I don't think it's being diminished. There'll be some up and down and blips in different areas, but no, the fundamentals are there for more price inflation because we have done such a terrible job in trying to protect the integrity of the dollar, and that has not yet been discounted.
Well, speaking of dumb policy, Dr. Paul, there's plenty to go around. We could probably quadruple the size of the length of the show. But let's put up this next article. We're giving a bunch of weapons to Ukraine. We're giving them longer range missiles. And so what does their deputy defense minister say? He said, hey, we got a great idea. We're going to sink Russia's Black Sea fleet, pledges Ukraine. What could go wrong? And that's not all, Dr. Paul. They've got something else in mind. Let's put on that next clip. Actually, here's a little quote from the deputy defense minister. He said they also plan to take back Crimea. This is interesting because they have not taken back any territory, but they're going to blow up the Black Sea fleet. They're going to start launching these 300-kilometer, if they get the 300-kilometer HIMARS, they pledge to blow up the bridge across the Kerch Strait and to start attacking Crimea directly. We mentioned this on the show before, that the U.S. is kind of winking in this direction. The thing is, it doesn't matter what you think about who's in the right or who's in the wrong, because what this will do is escalate beyond anything imaginable. And in fact, Dmitry Medvedev, the former president who's now head of their National Security Council, was pretty specific in his remarks after these threats. Let's put up that next clip. Because, you know, whether you hate him or love him, he's someone who should be taken seriously. Dmitry Medvedev tells World War II veterans that any attack on Crimea will be met with a devastating response from Russia. Quote, the leadership of Ukraine will be instantly and without chance of shelter subject to Judgment Day. It's pretty frightening. The question, again, as we've been saying since February and well before that, is it really worth it for us to risk a nuclear war over who's running Ukraine?
My guess is that when they say these things, they don't have the plan that in 6 weeks from now, they're going to do it and start bombing the Russian Navy. But it's still very, very dangerous. Some probably are there would like to do that, and some of them are here in the United States that would want to do that. But just this talk is very, very dangerous because it's the talk that there will be a reaction. I mean, the Russians aren't going to say, oh, well, you'll never do that. We don't believe that's going to happen. We're going to just ignore that. No, they have to retaliate to satisfy their hawks in their country. So they're going to go along with that. But then they say, well, what about this promise that the United States said, yeah, we're going to give you these weapons, and they're a little fancier, and you can hit Crimea, no problem. And somebody said, well, what about this promise? You said that the Ukrainians would not use it against Russia. Well, they say, well, Crimea is Ukraine.
Yeah,
so, they forget about history and a few other things like that. But this is ratcheting up so unnecessarily. In the end, of course, some of the people who are cheering them on are the ones that in the old days they might have been progressives. In the 60s they were progressives, and they say war is bad. Yeah. And now they're out there cheering them on, go to it, and not realizing how dangerous this is. I thought at the beginning that, this is stupid, And this is dangerous, but I would say that compared to the last month or two, I've gotten to the point where I think it's much more dangerous and can't be dismissed very easily. And that is why that policy should change. But I just wished I could say, all we need to do is change the party in power in Washington. Can you imagine? Can you imagine getting enough vote changes in the U.S. Congress to change the spending on this militarism? The Republicans are, and they're going to have the Democrats. It's going to be very easy to have a coalition, and they're going to spend more money than ever.
Yeah.
And so the military-industrial complex, my guess is they're not sweating this.
The thing is, you can hate the idea that Russia now controls Crimea. You can think it's terrible injustice, it shouldn't happen, what have you. But the question you have to ask yourself, even if you feel this way, is this worth nuclear missiles landing in New York or Berlin or Warsaw? The answer is no. And you mentioned Buchanan a couple of days ago, and his column was great. He said, even in '56 with Budapest, when the tanks rolled into Budapest, the Soviet tanks rolled in, we didn't risk a war for that, even when we were in the middle of an ideological struggle with communism. Czechoslovakia, '68, Warsaw in '81. They didn't do this. So now when the stakes are so much lower, we don't have a big ideological USSR breathing down our necks. Now we're going to risk nuclear war over this little island?
Well, we're at that point where we are risking it, but and I just wished that the sentiment in this country, we need change, we need more border protection, which you can make a pretty good argument for that. There's a lot of things where it can be helpful, but all of a sudden, you see the strength of the deep state and the military-industrial complex and the banking system. The Federal Reserve is always there. You say, well, these dreamers that say, "Oh, well, we'll just plug our car in here and it's going to come out magic." That's the way they think about money. They say, "We don't need to do that." They take a plug over there and they stick it in the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
$2 trillion today. We have to bail out everybody.
It's magic. Well, you sent this next clip over, and my first thought when I saw it was, this really speaks volumes about what this whole conflict is all about. And it's all about the military-industrial complex. Let's put this up. And the people in Ukraine understand this. The Defense Minister, Oleksiy Reznikov, and let's go forward, to the next one. No, go back. You should have it. Maybe you don't. Okay, you don't have it, sorry. Ukraine Defense Minister offers Ukraine as a testing ground for NATO weapons. I apologize, I forgot to send this clip. This is from our friends at antiwar.com. But the Defense Minister said, hey, NATO, you guys want to test some weapons? We got a big country. Bring it on. And guess where he said it? He said it in a meeting at the Atlantic Council. Well, who funds the Atlantic Council? The military-industrial complex and the governments of the U.S. and other countries. So this is a military-industrial complex. Ukraine seems to understand that and is very happy to serve its purpose.
Well, their military approach, if you include Ukraine as part of the European Union group, that they have, set this mess up and inviting problems, and they're in danger. They're doing more to make, and they're the first ones to be destroyed. Will be the Ukrainians, yet in the Western, it's sort of like what they did with the energy. The Europeans, I always say we should criticize our government and suggest what our government do and try to participate, but the Europeans, we're bad, but sometimes what are they thinking?
Crazy.
I'm talking right now in my mind. I'm thinking about energy.
Yeah.
And there they are going to freeze to death or burn to death or whatever. But they went along with it, and they did it because they listened to our military-industrial complex.
Yeah.
I mean, they say, well, we want your weapons and we want them for free, and we'll be part of NATO and do what you tell us. But the whole thing is the outright profiteering is very narrow. It's not the American citizens. It isn't like, oh, we're going to sell some money and the money's going in the treasury and taxes are going to go down. No, it doesn't work that way. They say that the taxes will stay up because the people want this stuff, and they sell out. They just go out, and that's sort of the way the argument in 2014 when we talked about it so much. When the coup was occurring, when they finally decided, NATO and the European bloc and the United States decided, oh, they're much too friendly with Russia. They want to continue. A system where we trade and talk to the Russians, and that's not much fun.
Yeah.
So that's why they had to bring it to an end.
There's no money in that, right?
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned they're going to freeze and they're going to roast. Well, what happened, and we haven't talked about it yet, maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow, is that the Africans went to the Europeans and said, what are you talking about? You guys might be a little bit uncomfortable in the winter. We are literally going to starve. And so that's what we've seen now. I think it's actually today, this is Wednesday, the European Union has announced that it's actually pulling back from some of its sanctions on Russia with regard to food trade. They're going to let some of Russian banks trade in food because they realize how many millions are going to starve because of their boneheaded policies. But I'll just close again with a reminder. We're getting close to the deadline. Put this next clip up if you can. Apply for the Ron Paul Scholar Day. You're going to have a great time. Upper division undergrads and grad students. I was looking through some applications yesterday, some really good applications. So it's going to be a good group. Learn about foreign policy, learn about civil liberties in a way you're not going to get in the college classroom, and with very few exceptions. And then the next one again is get your tickets. We had a few more sales. We're about halfway sold out. Get them while they're cheap, cheaper than last year. I was Dr. Paul. I went over to the T-shirt store yesterday, making some T-shirts for the conference and some T-shirt designs. And so it's exciting when you see things coming together. We're going to have some great T-shirts on sale, some other great things on sale, and we're going to have a great conference. So
very good. I'm sure of that, and I know how hard you've been working on this. But I'm quite certain I will talk about bankruptcy, but at the meeting. But it's going to be worked into our theme because morally there's a bankruptcy, there's a financial bankruptcy going, and that is where the real problem is we don't have the money for this, and we continue to do it, and yet the people think that it's going to last forever. So I think we're in a great danger because of the foreign policy leading us into a situation which could turn into be something worse than we had, in Vietnam or even in Korea. So let's hope we wake up, and that's the reason I think that we shouldn't be overly optimistic because, quite frankly, bipartisanship is still alive in Washington. That's why I continue to want to invite people to be as friendly as we can, because we're not going to be like the internationalists who don't want to, they want to make enemies of everybody. Because I want to talk with, people who have an honest opinion, and there are, and I met them along the way in Congress as well as out of Congress, that have an opinion that, libertarians and constitutionalists on the issues we agree with, why should we fight about it? And that's what we need to do. So that is a theme that is dear to my heart and something that we should, because I don't see many other ways of accomplishing this. I've never accepted the idea that one side has to sacrifice this liberty, and the other side sacrifices this liberty, and you come together. I don't like that. I think they should come together on the things they agree with. So anyway, I'm looking forward to the conference, and I'll be anxious to meet as many people as possible. I want to thank you for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.